Hello, my friends. Namaste. Today's topic is chart rectification. Chart rectification means you're trying to find out what time the person was actually born. So, for example, former President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, at 3 p.m., according to his birth certificate. Well, how do we know if the birth certificate's perfect? Maybe he was born at 3:01, or 3:02, or 3:03, or 2:50 p.m. Maybe he wasn't born exactly 3 p.m., as we say in the United States, or 15 hours, as more commonly said in probably most of the world. So, was he really born at 15 hours? Well, in astrology, there's a way that we actually think we could find out what time he was born. I mean, it sounds amazing. How do we do that? Well, here's the idea. The idea is you have to have a lot of events, things that occurred. Getting married, children being born, deaths in the family, major events, winning awards, things like this. Big things that have happened in your life. If you have those dates, then you see what time you would have to be born for the events to happen on those dates. Okay? And so you're kind of like reverse engineering this thing. So what we need to do is we need to make believe that John Kennedy was born a little earlier, a little later, and see if the predictive methods, usually we use transits and progressions if we want to, as our common modern methods to see if they predict that the event would happen on that day given a certain birth date and time. So, let me show you how it works. I go to forecast. I'm in Sirius 1.3, right? I'm in the Sirius 1.3 software, and it has a rectification feature, fortunately. So that's going to help a lot, enormously, as we're going to see. I click on the rectification, and sure enough, it wants dates, which I've already entered for John Kennedy. And where did I get these dates from? This list of dates, and here's a button that says add, remove, or change events. And I clicked on this button, and I said add an event. And then I selected what kind of event it was, and I put in the date, and I clicked OK. I'll just click cancel because I've already done this. And it added all those dates, and if I made a mistake, I can change it, or if I want to remove it, and so on. So I build my list of dates. So one reason why I chose, I'm going to just cancel out of this because I'm not going to do this now. I've already done it. I've already created this list. One reason why I chose a political person, especially a well-known one like John Kennedy, is he has a lot of good dates to use. So I searched around on the internet. I found several websites. I found this particular one, St. Petersburg Times online timeline, and here are some dates. And it says, well, this is the date he was born. June 1940, he graduates with a degree from Harvard with honors. So that might be a good date, but unfortunately they don't give the exact date. It just says June 1940. Maybe the date of the graduation ceremony might be good, and you might even debate whether that's the best date or not, because you know if you graduated before then. But anyway, they're not giving an exact date anyway, and you have to have an exact date. You don't need a place, you don't need a time, but it needs to be more precise than just the month. It should be to the day. So we can't use it. You just use the dates that you can get that fit what we want. So here's another things without a specific date. Here's one with a specific date. He's on a ship. The ship sinks. He performs heroically in rescuing his crew. So that could go under an achievement or benefit success, possibly. I wasn't sure whether to use this one or not, because it was a success for him. It was also probably traumatic. It's not a simple success story where you just get a medal or an honor or a raise or a new position. So I didn't use it because I think it's a little complicated. This next one, June 11, 1944, he gets an award. Okay, well that's straightforward. That's an achievement success. So if we look at Sirius, June 11, 1944, you'll see that I had entered that date, June 11/44. And I also added August 12/44, which I got from this website. August 12/44, his brother dies. So that's a major event. So you have to use some judgment as to what's a clear and striking event, and add that as one of the markers, one of the things that would be predicted. Now, there could be many things that would go on astrologically. Say when you win an award, Jupiter might be at the midheaven, transiting Sun might be at the midheaven, progressed Sun might be conjunct or the midheaven, or it might be trine the midheaven, or to your Sun. Maybe progressed Jupiter, progressed Jupiter moves slowly, but progressed Sun is trine your natal Jupiter. There are many, many possibilities. In fact, there are so many possibilities that the idea of doing rectification can seem overwhelming and just not really realistic to do. So some astrologers would specialize in rectification. Sometimes they would have to charge a fairly large fee for it because it's tedious. But that's the concept behind it. But now with 21st century software, we can actually have the software figure out all those complexities for us, present us the results, and we can use the results given by the computer. We can also analyze the results it gave to us, so it makes rectification possible to do, much more feasible and realistic to do. So basically, all you do is you put in the dates, you put the time period you want to search, because if you're told, you're born in the afternoon, you might want to search the whole afternoon. In this case, it's from a birth certificate. It is a round number time, which maybe makes you skeptical, but I'm going to do within an hour, from 14 hours to 16 hours. That puts the 15-hour time that he was born in the middle. So that's good. I figure my guess is he's probably born easily within a half hour of that. But I'll just run an hour before it, an hour after, and I'll run it every minute. It's a good idea to run it every minute because it can change, as we'll see. There can be significant difference. But it takes a long time to run, so you have to be patient. If you do it, less often, it runs faster. But I ran it every minute. And then you select the methods you want to use. These are the common modern methods used. Transit to natal. You could use progressed to natal, progressed to progressed, solar arc. Those are some of the common ones. There are other ones. I often do it 3 times. Once transit to natal. I personally think that transit to natal, the transit to natal, I just think that that's extremely important. And then I'll sometimes run it again with progressed to natal, and then a third time with progressed to natal, progressed, and solar arc to see how things are changing and evaluate it. Since the computer will just run, I can just tell it to go, come back a few minutes later, however long it takes to calculate, depending on how many dates I have and how many methods I select, and it will have all the results, and I can look at them and analyze them. And the other thing is, you may say, well, this is great, David, I love this, it's wonderful, but what aspects did you use? Maybe I don't like your aspects, maybe I don't like the orbs you used. Well, then you can change it. Here you customize. Or customize or add an astro signature. So here you can actually add a new event astro signature. So if you don't, if you have an additional one, you can actually add one. If I click on that, it asks me what I want to call it, and I can create a new one, and I can highlight any of these. And I can also have a different formula for transit to natal versus progressed to natal. So you have all that flexibility. If you're ambitious enough, you could even create your own set of astro signatures and write a book or something about how you do this. But just to get an idea of the formula that comes with the program, if I look at Romance Begins, transit to natal, and I click OK to look at it, it opens up this window and shows me all these dozens of different astrological events, like transiting Venus, conjunct natal ascendant, right? And definitely something we would expect astrologically. And we gave it a lot of points, 50 points. And here it's only 1 degree orbs. some people say, give it a bigger orb. But we're figuring if you were really, a major event occurred, it should be pretty exact. But, maybe it should have a large orb. You can go in here and make the orbs larger. So you can create a very specific set of influences, and most of these are to the ascendant or midheaven because they're going to vary quickly depending on the birth time. So these are transits to the ascendant midheaven. And even things like Jupiter sextile the ascendant. Well, it's not so romantic, but it is a big celebration. So we gave it 4 points. Just a few points as compared to 50 points for Venus, on the ascendant or the 7th house. You might say, gee, we give more to the 7th house. So anyway, it's you can customize it to how you want. In reality, as long as you get the basic idea somewhere along the line of what makes sense, you're going to get results that will be reasonable. Whether I give this 30 points or 50 points, as we'll see, it won't make that huge of a difference. You're still going to get a big indication if Venus crosses the ascendant or 7th house that the person would be born at that time. So we find out what time you would have to be born for these events to occur. So there it is. I mean, totally flexible, totally creative. You can do what you want, and you'll get a graph of the results, so you can just see it, and the specific details on every date. If you think about it, we want to know for August 12, 1944, if John Kennedy was born at the 15 hours that his birth certificate says, what aspects were there on August 12, 1944, if he was born at 15 hours? What aspects were there if he was born at 1501 that are related to a death in the family? Maybe if he's born at 1505 instead of 15, maybe that puts Saturn, which is often associated with death, right on the fourth, an angular cusp or something like that. So it will do all of that information, present it to you, and give it to you. So the bottom line is I personally run this 3 times, one with transitonatal, one with transitonatal and progrestinatal, and then a 3rd time with transitonatal, progrestinatal, progress, and solar arc to natal, which is over here, this one. So I do it 3 times, and I see what additional information. I put most of the emphasis on transit to natal. I've just really found that works. And secondly, progress to natal. But, different astrologers weight these things differently, and you have all those choices. It's up to you. So you quick begin analysis, and then it takes a long time to run. I'll click on it, but we're not going to wait. With all these events, we have a lot of events for him. I've only got one method. If I start checking the others, it'll be even slower. But here it is, chugging along. It's on the 4th and 5th, and it looks like every couple of seconds, every few seconds, every 2 or 3 seconds, it does the next time. What it's doing is it's saying, okay, if John Kennedy was born at 14 hours, for all of these events, the total score was 41.38. We saw that we gave 50 points for some really big things. Most things get very, few points. But here, if he's born at this time here, 99 points. It's going through and calculating. I'm going to stop this because we're not going to sit and wait for all this to run. I already ran this and have the results. So I'll stop it. And it tells me you have chosen to stop the calculation. And then it will show the results for as much as I did. And there's the graph. Pull that over so you can see it. From 14 hours to 14:18, I stopped it, I guess, after 18 or 19 minutes, or it was running every minute, and it tells me what it was doing, 14 hours to 16 hours every minute. And I'm actually more interested when it gets closer to 15 hours, but I stopped it, and I'll show you the whole graph. So it shows you the graph, and here I'll drag over here into this viewable part, the part of my screen I'm capturing for this tutorial. It shows you every single thing that happened. So it's saying if he was born at 14 hours, these are the transit to natal, there's this transit to natal. These are the transit to natal influences that occurred on June 1144 related to success and benefit if he was born at 2 p.m. And so it does all the 2 p.m.s. If he was born at 2 p.m. or 14 hours, whatever you want to call it, if he's born at 14 hours, this is the date his brother died. These are the things that happened. Transiting Saturn was parallel as natal midheaven. So this formula includes parallels and contraparallels. Again, you could customize the formula or create your own. Pluto sextile the ascendant. Transiting Pluto with sextile the ascendant, 24 minutes. That's a fairly good, relationship, but it is a sextile. And Pluto's a slow-moving planet. And it was 24 minutes. It's probably in orb for a long time, so we only gave it a small number of points. It only got less than 1 point for that. So it just gave it a little bit of weighting. So you get the idea, right? And here's the next event for 2 p.m. So it does all the 2 p.m.s. And if I scroll down, here it's finished the last event for 14 hours, and now it starts all the details for 1401. So if you want to keep it simple, you just can look at the graph, and you can say, hey, the graph says he's born at this time. These people who wrote this software know more than I do. That must be the time. You can do that, and if you want to be more advanced or technical or sophisticated, whatever you want to call it, you can analyze the specific results to see exactly what was going on, see if it makes sense to you, and then if you're really ambitious, you could be customizing that formula. I don't think you need to do that because you can see the results and see what you think of it. Okay, so what did the graph say? What did we get for John Kennedy? Well, I already ran it, as I said, because we're not going to sit here and watch this thing click away. And there it is. Based on transit to natal and those events, he was probably born at 15:15, or in America we would say 3:15 p.m. He's probably born at 15:15, maybe at 14:49, and not born at 15 hours. So one of these 2 times. Now this one is very high, but it's half hour before he was born, a little over half hour before he was born. I kind of doubt it myself that he would be born that far away. You are going to get indications of possible times just by chance that are not the actual time. So this does not work so perfectly that whatever date peaks throughout the day is definitely the time. It's not that good to be able to do that, because as astrologers we haven't figured out what causes events that well. That's the bad news. The good news is we have gotten fantastic feedback about this feature. Astrologers have told us, I rectified my chart over the years, and I ran your rectification, boom, right there. All I did was put in the dates, click go, and it showed me what had taken me so long to figure out. And so, it will definitely pick out the probable times when things were occurring. It won't be able to pick out the one and only time, but it will pick out probable times. And it will depend on your astrological theory, how, if you want to emphasize the progressions or the transits or what you want to do. You may have methods, if you're an astrologer, that you use that we have not included in the rectification yet. Every feature of astrological software goes on forever. So this is fantastic, but there's more we could do with it. But really, this covers the essentials extremely well. And what I'm going to show you next is that it's extremely precise. It's actually doing it correctly. And let's get an example of that. If I go back to Sirius, and let me close these windows and go back to the wheel. Here's what we're saying. Here's John Kennedy's chart, his normal chart, according to his birth certificate, with 20 degrees Libra rising. What I did, before I started this tutorial ahead of time, is I went in, I entered his chart for those other 2 times. the 1449 and the 1537. I'll show you that graph again. This is the 1449. This is the 1537. I'll show you why I did 1537. That doesn't show up here. That shows up when I add progressions. But let's just talk about 1449. According to the 1449, according to the rectification using transit to natal, 1449 is one of the possible times. Also 1515. But let's just look at 1449 as an example. If he was born at 1449, he has 17 Libra 51 rising. I could put these two wheels next to each other. I'll just do two wheels. I'll put his natal on the left, the 1449 on the right. Fine. Let me make these both. It says IFC for the styles. I'll just make those the same. Okay, and so here it is, 20 Libra according to his birth certificate, 17 Libra 51. You see the charts are basically identical, but if he's born those 11 minutes earlier, the houses are all back a little bit. And what the rectification is saying is if he had this 17 Libra 51 rising, that would match the events in his life, and that's what I'll show you next, how that matching works. So here I have the specific results that were produced based on the rectification. So as I explained, when you run the rectification, and as I showed you, when you run the rectification, you get two results, or two kinds of results. You get the graph, and you know what the graph is. The graph. There's the graph. It produces the graph, and then it produces a text listing, which looks like this, of exactly what was happening. And this is the part of the results for 1449, as an example, for July 13, 1960, which was one of his success dates, transiting Sun, I highlighted it here, transiting Sun was conjunct the natal midheaven, very exact, if he was born at 1449. So that's what this detailed results are. This is a big, huge file with all this information. Well, this is actually just an excerpt of the huge file. The original file that was produced is an extremely long file that has the totals for every event for every possible time that we're looking at. So, in other words, if I enter a chart for him, if I enter a chart for John Kennedy born at 1449, then on July 13, 1960, I should see the Sun conjunct the midheaven. And you do. Very exact. If I calculated it, I'm not going to enter all that right now. I'm already at 23 minutes, and I'd like to stop this after a half hour, so good thing I ran this ahead of time. It only takes a minute or two to enter all that stuff. But here it is. This is a bi-wheel where I called it John F. Kennedy 1449. This is his chart if he was born at 1449, not 15 hours. According to his birth certificate, it has the 17 Libra 51. I just showed you that, 17 Libra 51. And this is the chart for the transits. I did it for Washington, D.C., 12 noon. For this date, when a very good thing happened, I can go look and see what it was, but it was July 13, 1960, and there it is. Sun, transiting Sun, this is the transits, right on the midheaven. Midheaven's 21 Cancer 10, Sun is 21 Cancer 14. So, you know, if you did this manually as an astrologer, you could keep, you know, manipulating the chart around, and then you would say, oh my God, Sun's right on the midheaven, exactly on this day. And, you know, it would take you a long time to figure that out, and here it is, already calculated, already figured out. I'm just doing the bi-wheel just to show you that it's true. Okay? So that's it. The program will find all of these things. You don't have to create these bi-wheels. You don't have to run all these transits. It will just graph it to you, and it will show you the results. I'll show you one more example of how to look at how to do the rectification. So you get to help you sort of sink in, this idea of how rectification is done. Um, and what I've got here is John Kennedy, if he was born at, this is over a half hour later. I just sort of doubt that he was actually born at 1537. But if he was born over a half hour later, he'd have 27 Libra rising instead of, what was his natal? It was 2020. So if he's born 37 minutes later, he'd have 27 Libra 11. And why do I care about this time, 337? Because if I run the rectification, with transits and progrestinatal, it shows a big peak at 1537. Here it says 1537, huge peak, means when I add progressions in, it shows this as a possible time he was born. Now, I rather doubt it. It's not realistic. I'd look for something closer to 15 hours, and it's showing 1506 as a possibility. And our 1449 that we found by transits is right there. But when we add progressions, it says, well, maybe a little bit earlier. But I still like this 1449 because it's based on the transits. And as I go back up, according to the transits, here's the 1449. So the graphs look different if you use different methods to do your rectification. And if you're new to astrology and you say, oh my God, this is so confusing. David, what do I do? Should I use transits? Should I use progrestinatal? What do I do? Just tell me what to do. Well, unfortunately, in astrology, there's very rarely one answer. I mean, I can give you one answer, and some astrology teachers like to do that. But more honestly, there are different opinions about it. I do put most of the emphasis on transit to natal, and that's why I like the 1449. But progrestinatal can also give you some information. So there's a few possible times. Now, we can look at the detailed listing, and if we do that for the 1539, we see that on November 4th, 1952, which was one of these success days for John Kennedy, the progressed ascendant was opposite natal Jupiter. Now, the bottom line is this. If you're an astrologer and you see progressed ascendant opposite natal Jupiter, and progressed ascendant moves about 1 degree a year, what do you think is going to happen? Something big is going to happen in the life. And if John Kennedy was born at 1537, he would have that. And that would match, that's what we would expect to occur. And I have a graph of that, a biwheel of that as well, over here. And here is if John Kennedy was born at 1537, in America we say 3:37 p.m., and we progress it for this day when something good happened, November 4th, 1952. There's the natal Jupiter, 23 Taurus 03. There's the progressed ascendant, 22 Scorpio 53, 10-minute orb. This is what we're expecting for a big day. And what the rectification has done is it has found that that influence. So if I go to the listing, it found it right there. Progressed ascendant, opposite natal Jupiter, 10-minute orb. It found it. It went through, said, if he was born then, let's calculate everything. Let's see if anything major happened. It finds it, and then it produces the graph. Where's my graph? Over here. Right there. And the graph goes way up because the progressed ascendant is opposite natal Jupiter. And plus a bunch of other things were happening. And I can go through this listing and scroll down and read all of those details of everything that was occurring on that date. I'm scrolling down here to see if there's some other. Here's another big one. 1537. Progressed Jupiter is sextile natal midheaven. So there's a lot of things going on. If it's a slow-moving thing, then it would just be strong for a long period of time. But it's picking out all those major things that are happening. Let's see, what did I want to look at? Yeah. All right, so progressed Jupiter is over here, and there's his natal midheaven, so it's moving into a sextile aspect. And that's a slow-moving thing because it's progressed Jupiter, which is an outer planet, but it become gradually stronger or weaker over time, and that's keeping a lot of these things very high. In other words, if I look at the graph again, here, these scores are all up in the hundreds because of that slow-moving aspect. Anyway, there's some technical issues there. You don't have to get lost in that. The basic thing is that all that is figured out for you. Sirius has gone through, calculated every aspect that we think is relevant, and you can customize it, tells you the details, gives you the graph, and shows you when the person's likely to be born. So that's rectification. Let me summarize, because there's a lot of information. The bottom line is, let me go back to Sirius. Bottom line is, let me go back to his natal chart. Okay, I know this is, I might have frayed your brain here with a lot of information. So let's review, and then I'll end this video. Here's John Kennedy's chart. It says he's born at 3 p.m. Astrologers claim that they can figure out if he was really born at 3 p.m. And one of the ways it's done, it's not the only way, but probably the most common way, is you get a list of events, big things that happened in your life. If nothing big happened in your life, or you don't know the exact dates when they occurred, you can't do the rectification. Sorry. You have to have the dates, you put them in, and then you see if the kinds of things we expect to happen by prediction actually predict those events. And that's what the rectification feature in Sirius 1.3 does. And it does it in extreme detail and extreme flexibility, allowing you to create your own events, create your own weightings, total all that together, and then you don't have to blindly follow it. You say, David, I don't like to follow computers, I like to think for myself. Good, think for yourself. You've got that detailed list, if you want to look at it, that has accumulated all this information for you. And then you can think about it in relationship to that event, and you may say, it weighted this a lot, but, for some reason I don't think it should do it as much. And you could put in rules with rulerships and so on. If the ruler of whatever is aspecting something, you could give that more weight. But if there are certain progressions or transits that you expect to occur for certain events, you can rectify. If you don't think that's possible, that there are no possible tendencies, most people would say that there are. If there's a big benefit, expect a Jupiter thing of some kind, and we should see some kind of increase in the graph, and then we can look at those details if we want to see if they make sense, and that's how you get the rectification. Especially something like a romance beginning, we're expecting some activation of the 7th house, for example. And so you can do planets and houses. Usually the emphasis is a planet aspecting an angular cusp. Okay, I think you got the idea. That's rectification. I've shown you, I verified that the results that come out of Sirius do match. Let me show you that again, and then I'll end this video. That these biwheels, where I went through the trouble to enter the chart as if he was born at that time, do the progression for that date, and see that what Sirius found is actually there. And by the way, when you do, last thing I'll mention, when you use progressions, there are different methods of progressing the house cusps. I've got that in another video. And so when you select your progressions in Sirius, it asks you which method you want to use. I use the solar arc midheaven method. The other popular method is the NABOD, and that's another thing you could do. You could, change it from one to the other and rerun the whole thing again if you're using progressions. There's a lot of things you can do here. But to keep it simple, all you have to do is just put in the dates, look at the graph, and you've got the information. Much more comprehensive, much more complete, much more thorough than realistically than you could ever do by hand. So if you're going to do rectification, and you use modern methods like transit to natal aspects and progress to natal aspects and maybe solar arcs, really, I don't see how you would want to do it any other way. This is just mind-boggling with the graph and the details and everything right there and the ability to customize. So rectification is now a realistic possibility in modern times to do in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so that's chart rectification. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got a lot out of it. If it was too much, maybe you can watch it again. It should begin to make sense. If you have some background in astrology, you probably got that right away. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I hope that helps. I hope you learned something. Take care. God bless. Namaste.